Viewer discretion is advised. This content is for education and entertainment purposes. Any opinions are the opinion of hosts or guests and not the opinion of employers.
Hey, Ousters! Thank you for joining us for another episode. Oust Now Podcast Presents. This is us. We appreciate your support, and we're excited for this episode about Miss Barbara C. Jordan. Woo, 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 woo.
That's right. As always, thank you for joining. We are excited about this project and we're excited to share Miss Barbara Charlene Jordan with you. Barbara C. Jordan was born in Austin, Texas, to Arlene P. Jordan, a teacher in a church and a maid. And her father was Benjamin Jordan, a Baptist preacher and a warehouse worker. Through her mother, Jordan was the great granddaughter of Edward Patton, who was the last African American member of the Texas House of Representatives prior to the marginalization of Black Texans under the Jim Crow laws.
Jordan attended Roberson Elementary School. She graduated from Phyllis Wheatley High School in 1952 with honors. At Wheatley, Jordan's linguistic abilities were developed through the support of her teachers and curriculum. Her major influences included her English teacher, Miss D.B. Reed, elocutionist Ashton J. Oliver, and speech and drama teacher Robert T. Holland.
Jordan credited a speech she heard in her high school years by Edith S. Sampson with inspiring her to become an attorney. Oh, look at that. Because of segregation, she could not attend the University of Texas at Austin and instead chose Texas South University, a historically Black institution, majoring in political science and history. At Texas Southern University, Jordan was a national champion debater, learning from her coach, Thomas Freeman, and defeating opponents from Yale and Brown and tying Harvard University. She graduated magna cum laude in 1956. Wow. At Texas Southern University, she pledged Delta Gamma chapter, the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She attended Boston University School of Law, graduating in 1959.
Jordan taught political science at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama for 1 year. In 1960, she returned to Houston and started a private law practice. During that time in Texas, there was only 2 Black women attorneys, one being Jordan, who was 24 years old. To start off her career, Jordan became the first Black woman to work as an administrative assistant to a county judge, Bill Elliott. Jordan began her work in politics in 1960 when she became a volunteer for the John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson campaign, traveling to African American churches in Houston to encourage people to vote. That must have been something.
Wow. I was just thinking that in my
Right?
mind, girl.
Damn.
I was just thinking that same thing.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that we've never heard of her. Have you heard of her before doing this research? 'Cause
I have
have
heard the
you been
name, but I
okay.
did not know,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
why we're here, right?
Amen. Okay.
Amen.
Along with Curtis Graves and Joe Lockridge, she was one of the 3 African American members elected in 1966 to the Texas legislature, the first one since 1896. With Jordan elected to the Texas Senate, she became the first Black woman to serve in that body. Wow, look at that. Before her election, Jordan said, for the first time in Texas, we are going to have legislators who represent people, not cattle.
Dang.
Wow. How profound. Go ahead.
Yeah, because like Texas cattle, Texas beef, they would be representing that
Yeah.
trade versus the
Yeah.
people that live there. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh. The Texas Senate in 1966 consisted of 31 white men and Jordan, with Jordan experiencing racism and sexism from her colleagues. Houston community members were unsure of how much of a difference Jordan could make serving in the Senate. It always be the ones that people always want to
Mhm.
downplay and doubt their capabilities and abilities that will okay.
Rise
That
to the
will
occasion, honey.
there you go. Okay. Aware of the challenges she would face, Jordan's goal was to be respected by the white conservatives in the Senate. One of the ways she accomplished this was by befriending Dorsey Hardiman, who was seen as the most powerful man in that body of legislature, and Lieutenant Governor Ben Barnes. Jordan ran as a liberal Democrat, but she had strong relationships with the conservative wing of the Texas Democratic Party. Her efforts in her first term led to her being unanimously elected as outstanding freshman member of her colleagues.
Wow, look at that. That's that.
Mhm.
In 1972, Jordan was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, the first woman elected in her own right to represent Texas in the House. She received extensive support from former President Lyndon B. Johnson, who helped her secure a position on the House Judiciary Committee. In 1974, she made an influential televised speech before the House Judiciary Committee, okay, supporting the impeachment of President Richard Nixon, Johnson's successor as president. In 1975, she was appointed by Carl Albert, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, to the Democratic Steering and Policy Committee.
In 1976, Jordan mentioned as a possible running mate to Jimmy Carter of Georgia, became instead the first African American woman to deliver a keynote address at the Democratic National Convention. On July 12, 1976, Jordan delivered, sorry,
Mm-mm.
her being the first African woman to deliver this keynote address in 1976. That was 2 years before I was born.
1 year
That
before I
was,
was.
so I'm like, that wasn't that long ago. This address was the first time a major political party's nominating convention had an African American as the keynote speaker. So, not only the first woman, but then also an African American as a keynote speaker. That was 1976. Okay.
Gentlemen, for a very warm reception. It was 144 years ago that members of the Democratic Party first met in convention to select a presidential candidate. Since that time, Democrats have continued to convene once every 4 years and draft the party platform and nominate a presidential candidate. And our meeting this week is a continuation of that tradition. But there is something different about tonight. There is something special about tonight. What is different? What is special? I, Barbara Jordan, am a keynote speaker.
Hmm.
When a lot of years passed since 1832, and during that time it would have been most unusual for any national political party to ask a Barbara Jordan to deliver a keynote address. But tonight, here I am. And I feel that notwithstanding the past, that my presence here is one additional bit of evidence that the American dream need not forever be deferred. Now that I have this grand distinction, what in the world am I supposed to say? I could easily spend this time praising the accomplishments of this party and attacking the Republicans, but I don't choose to do that. I could list the many problems which Americans have. I could list the problems which cause people to feel cynical, angry, frustrated. Problems which include lack of integrity in government, the feeling that the individual no longer counts, the reality of material and spiritual poverty, the feeling that the grand American experiment is failing or has failed. I could recite these problems, and then I could sit down and offer no solutions. But I don't choose to do that either. The citizens of America expect more, deserve, and they want more than a recital of problems. We are a people in a quandary about the present. We are a people in search of our future. We are a people in search of a national community. We are a people trying not only to solve the problems of the present, unemployment, inflation, but we are attempting on a larger scale to fulfill the promise of America. We are attempting to fulfill our national purpose to create and sustain a society in which all of us are equal. Throughout our history, when people have looked for new ways to solve their problems and to uphold the principles of this nation, many times they have turned to political parties. They have often turned to the Democratic Party. What is it? What is it about the Democratic Party that makes it the instrument the people use when they search for ways to shape their future? Well, I believe the answer to that question lies in our concept of governing. Our concept of governing is derived from our view of people. It is a concept deeply rooted in a set of beliefs firmly etched in the national conscience of all of us. Now, what are these beliefs? First, we believe in equality for all and privileges for none. This is a belief that each American, regardless of background, has equal standing in the public forum, all of us. Because we believe this idea so firmly, we are an inclusive rather than an exclusive party. Let everybody come. You know, I think it's no accident that most of those immigrating to America in the 19th century identified with the Democratic Party. We are a heterogeneous party made up of Americans of diverse backgrounds. We believe that the people are the source of all governmental power, that the authority of the people is to be extended, not restricted. This can be accomplished only by providing each citizen with every opportunity to participate in the management of the government. They must have that. We believe that the government, which represents the authority of all the people, not just one interest group, but all the people, has an obligation to actively, underscore actively, seek to remove those obstacles which would block individual achievement, obstacles emanating from race, sex, economic condition. The government must remove them, seek to remove them. We are a party. We are a party of innovation. We do not reject our traditions, but we are willing to adapt to changing circumstances. When change we must, we are willing to suffer the discomfort of change in order to achieve a better future. We have a positive vision of the future founded on the belief that the gap between the promise and reality of America can one day be finally closed. We believe that. This, my friends, is the bedrock of our concept of governing. This is a part of the reason why Americans have turned to the Democratic Party. These are the foundations upon which a national community can be built. Let all understand that these guiding principles cannot be discarded for short-term political gains. They represent what this country is all about. They are indigenous to the American idea, and these are principles which are not negotiable. In other times, I could stand here and give this kind of exposition on the beliefs of the Democratic Party, and that would be enough. But today, that is not enough. People want more. That is not sufficient reason for the majority of the people of this country to decide to vote Democratic. We have made mistakes. We realize that. We admit our mistakes. In our haste to do all things for all people, we did not foresee the full consequences of our actions. And when the people raised their voices, we didn't hear. But our deafness was only a temporary condition and not an irreversible condition. Even as I stand here and admit that we have made mistakes, I still believe that as the people of America sit in judgment on each party, They will recognize that our mistakes were mistakes of the heart. They'll recognize that. Now, we must look to the future. Let us heed the voice of the people and recognize their common sense. If we do not, we not only blaspheme our political heritage, we ignore the common ties that bind all Americans. Many fear the future, many are distrustful of their leaders and believe that their voices are never heard. Many seek only to satisfy their private wants, to satisfy their private interests. But this is the great danger America faces, that we will cease to be one nation and become instead a collection of interest groups, city against suburb, region against region, individual against individual, each seeking to satisfy private wants. If that happens, who then will speak for America? Who then will speak for the common good? This is the question which must be answered in 1976. Are we to be one people, bound together by common spirit, sharing in a common endeavor, or will we become a divided nation? For all of its uncertainty, we cannot flee the future. We must not become the new Puritans and reject our society. We must address and master the future together. It can be done if we restore the belief that we share a sense of national community, that we share a common national endeavor. It can be done. There is no executive order, there is no law that can require the American people to form a national community. This we must do as individuals. And if we do it as individuals, there is no president of the United States who can veto that decision. As a first step, we must restore our belief in ourselves. We are a generous people, so why can't we be generous with each other? We need to take to heart the words spoken by Thomas Jefferson. Let us restore the social intercourse. Let us restore to social intercourse that harmony and that affection without which liberty and even life are but dreary things. A nation is formed by the willingness of each of us to share in the responsibility for upholding the common good. A government is invigorated when each one of us is willing to participate in shaping the future of this nation. In this election year, we must define the common good and begin again to shape a common future. Let each person do his or her part. If one citizen is unwilling to participate, all of us are going to suffer. For the American idea, though it is shared by all of us, is realized in each one of us. And now, what are those of us who are elected public officials supposed to do? We call ourselves public servants. But I'll tell you this, we as public servants must set an example for the rest of the nation. It is hypocritical for the public official to admonish and exhort the people to uphold the common good if we are derelict in upholding the common good. More is required. More is required of public officials than slogans and handshakes and press releases. More is required. We must hold ourselves strictly accountable. We must provide the people with a vision of the future. If we promise as public officials, we must deliver. If we as public officials propose, we must produce. If we say to the American people, it is time for you to be sacrificial, sacrifice. If the public official says that, we must be the first to give. We must be. And again, if we make mistakes, we must be willing to admit them. We have to do that. What we have to do is strike a balance between the idea that government should do everything and the idea, the belief, that government ought to do nothing. Strike a balance. Let there be no illusions about the difficulty of forming this kind of a national community. It's tough, difficult, not easy, but a spirit of harmony will survive in America only if each of us remembers that we share a common destiny. If each of us remembers when self-interest and bitterness seem to prevail, that we share a common destiny, I have confidence that we can form this kind of national community. I have confidence that the Democratic Party can lead the way. I have that confidence. We cannot improve on the system of government handed down to us by the founders of the Republic. There is no way to improve upon that, but what we can do is to find new ways to implement that system and realize our destiny. Now, I began this speech by commenting to you on the uniqueness of a Barbara Jordan making a keynote address. Well, I am going to close my speech by quoting a Republican president. And I ask you that as you listen to these words of Abraham Lincoln, relate them to the concept of a national community in which every last one of us participates. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Whatever differs from this, to the extent of the difference, is no democracy. Thank you.
On July 25th, 1974, Jordan delivered a 15-minute televised speech in front of the members of the U.S. House Judiciary Committee during the hearings that were part of the impeachment process against Richard Nixon. Throughout her Judiciary Committee impeachment speech, Jordan strongly stood by the Constitution of the United States. She defended the checks and balances system, which was set in place to inhibit any any politician from abusing their power. Jordan never directly said that she wanted Nixon impeached, but rather subtly and cleverly implied her thoughts. She stated facts that proved Nixon to be untrustworthy and heavily involved in illegal situations.
That sounds familiar.
That's why I paused and looked. I'm sorry. And quoted, I'm sorry, and quoted the drafters of the Constitution to argue that actions like Nixon's during the scandal correspondence with their understanding of impeachment offenses. This powerful and influential statement earned Jordan's national praise for her morals and wisdom. Further, both conservatives and liberals liked Jordan because of her appeal to the American dream and her position on Watergate and the Voting Rights Act, respectively.
Jordan supported the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977, legislation that required banks to lend and make services available to underserved, poor, and minority communities. She supported the renewal of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and expansion of that act to cover language minorities. This extended protections to Hispanics in Texas and was opposed by Texas Governor Dolph Briscoe and Secretary of State Mark White. The original version of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 included Section 5, which required that changes to voting laws in certain jurisdictions were required to be reviewed by the Attorney General or the United States District Court, but this did not apply to Texas because the state was not included in the determined jurisdictions. The law changed to include Texas under the expanded version, along with the requirement of bilingual ballots for areas where more than 5% of the population spoke a language other than English. She also authored an act that ended federal authorization of price fixing by manufacturers. Jordan was also a proponent of the Equal Rights Amendment and issued a statement in support of extending the deadline in 1979, not too long ago. During Jordan's tenure as a congresswoman, she sponsored or co-sponsored over 300 bills or resolutions, several of which are still in effect today as law. There was one funny thing that struck out to me, and I know this is going to sound totally off topic and weird, but did you see that lady like in the
Was we thinking the same thing at the same time? Because I was like, you didn't know that back in the day? Because she was lit right there. This
and
is
the
the
dude with the
shit.
pipe? I was like,
This is the shit.
that ain't gonna fly now.
Our granddaddy used to smoke a pipe.
Really?
Yes,
She was
absolutely.
like, and I was like, I wanted to laugh, but I was like, no, 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 no,
This
no.
is not the time.
Yeah,
Even though we both wanted to, because I definitely saw that. I was like,
yeah.
oh yeah, you can't even smoke in public like that no more.
Totally off topic, but
Yeah, I'm sorry.
it was kind
Go
of
ahead.
like, as much as things have changed, there are things that have stayed the same. And the most
Right.
striking thing that stood out to me about that speech is there was two things. One was everything that she said in that speech she could easily say the same effing thing today,
Right now.
and it would still be relative.
Right now.
Absolutely. And
Period.
that some of the things that she was trying to warn against,
Mhm.
as far as we're becoming a nation of special interests and groups,
Yep.
that's now. That is the
Absolutely.
now. You know that saying about Black women seeing things way ahead before other people can see it? This is a great example of that, because here she's saying, "Hey, look, if we're not careful, this whole nation is going to turn into a nation of special interests."
Yep.
And this was in 197 I forget the year. I think it was 1976, and here we are. Trust Black women.
2025. 2025.
Yeah.
I definitely I agree. Like I really don't know. You really did say exactly what I was thinking, and how familiar and how current from when she gave that speech to now. Like a time machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't Yeah, like, it just pop like,
Like,
it's
girl, where is it? Where is the time machine?
where is it? In The Simpsons. Just watch The Simpsons, we know exactly what's gonna happen next. So they say.
Girl, because I know Trump,
We ain't gonna say that man's name on anything.
wasn't he on the escalator going down as president in the
Mhm. I was like, I think I need to get up on The Simpsons so I know what's gonna happen in the future. Fun fact that I did find about her, um, she experienced like sexism and stuff throughout her career, and obviously racism, but she did receive some black backlash because even though she never identified as a member of the what we now call the LGBTQ community, she is referred to as one of the first to also serve in government. So like she's a woman of many firsts in so many different ways. And as a woman of many firsts, that was one of them. But she was also the first to receive honors at Texas State Cemetery. Oh wow! And then there's a lot of places in Texas that are named after her. And I bet you that there's a lot of Texans who may not know what
that is
she.
right. What she did, even what her accomplishments are.
Yeah.
I feel a little guilty because I
Texas, prove me
definitely.
wrong. Prove me wrong in the comments here. I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like
Yeah, I definitely. I'm like, dang. I why have I not heard? But thanks to, this project, I think a lot more people will be enlightened.
I'm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a funny
including
thing.
myself, because I sure enough did not know.
Same, and it's weird. I think we all know that there's
Mm,
serious gaps in education.
mm.
Like if nothing else, I'm not going to go down the political rabbit hole, but I think if nothing else, the educational system needs to be beefed up with more facts, repeat facts about our history and all of our history, the contribution that all people have made, and facts and reality, because that is how we don't repeat those same mistakes. Yet it seems like we're headed in a different direction, unfortunately. But that
That
is
part.
why we can do our small part in learning more. And here we are.
I agree.
Yeah. Because if nothing else, if you ain't gonna learn it in school, you can learn it as adults like us. But it's funny. Sometimes you just get so focused on living that we don't always have the.
Mm.
I was saying we ain't got time for that, but you know what I'm saying? Like you're
No, I get it.
like
The next day, what do we have to do next? What do I have to take care of? I just feel like with life being what it is, especially in the time that we are in, it's hard to find the time for much of anything other than just getting it done.
Mhm.
And not just getting it done, but um surviving it. We all recognize survival mode, and I think that looks different for everyone. And I really do feel that the the times that we are having right now are they're not for the weak. They're not. You're gonna have to know how to navigate. You're gonna have to know how to navigate.
Yeah.
Or not just even navigate. You might have to not navigate, but you might even have to learn how to do without some things.
One of the reasons why we decided to do this project is because we want to learn more and we want to be able to educate our next generation because us at this juncture of our lives, there's stuff that we are still learning that maybe we could have learned at a different time in high school, but we didn't. And for whatever reason, it is what it is. But here we are today making a choice to learn our history. And I don't mean our history, it's all of our histories, no matter if you're an alien or a human. This is part of our history. And what an amazing opportunity for us to be able to do this. And thank you, everyone who's joining us with this journey, because we're learning a lot. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think it's never too late to learn. Like I think you learn it when you're supposed to. Um no, I'm not gonna say when you're supposed to, but I feel like it's never too late to there should never be a point in your life where you're not learning something.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we could have learned about it in high school or in college or whatever. But the mere fact that not only are we taking the time to learn about it, but we're taking the time to learn about it so that we can share, not just us, but
Yeah.
us. And I think that's why this is us from Oust Now podcast
Mhm.
is an awesome project. It's just about unity, not segregation. It's not just you and me or just our life facts, but it has to do with, like you said, it has to do with the journey of all of us. And hopefully we can retain some of that despite everything that looks like is being just undone.
Yeah. You can't exclude us and our contribution to this great nation. And that's part of this purpose here. And for whatever reason, God saw fit to make this happen. So thank you first. Amen. Thank you for joining us for this episode where we highlighted and learned more about Miss Barbara C. Jordan. And we look forward to the next episode.